Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. On a humid May morning, the federal courthouse on Spring Street felt like a forgotten municipal aquarium, lit by the same tired fluorescence, echoing with the same metallic cough of overworked vents, and smelling faintly of paperwork that had absorbed far too many seasons of burnt coffee. Reporters drifted through the corridors in loose shoals, their lanyards flicking like orange fish tails, as they compared color-coded notes and rehearsed stand-up lines in anxious half-whispers. Inside Courtroom 12B, the air was thicker, more gelatinous, as though the ceiling vents were pumping in humidity as an experimental form of crowd control. Cassie had already braved the stand. Will Smith and Monique had finished their testimonies, and most observers assumed the day's shot quota was spent. Even the court stenographer's shoulders had relaxed into a gentle slouch, punctuation keys cooling after their early morning sprint. Diddy's defense team whispered about lunch plans, Peruvian or Thai, confident the session would coast into an uneventful recess. Then the oak doors inhaled, exhaled, and swung wide. O'Shea Jackson, Ice Cube to the planetary public, crossed the threshold alone. No entourage smoothed his path. No stylist preceded him with hairspray and grin. He carried only a sun-bleached manila folder, whose edges curled like tired petals, a single copper clip pinching its spine. Everything about his arrival felt unplanned and therefore volcanic. A tremor nobody's calendar app had forecast. One bailiff blinked so hard his glasses slipped. Another shifted her weight, as if the room had tilted. Cube's stride rewired the room circuitry. Carpet fibers accepted his boots, as though they had waited decades for the imprint. Jurors straightened. The judge reclined, suddenly aware that a new chess piece had materialized mid-game. Even the reporters, seasoned in spectacle, fell silent, as if waiting for subtitling that never came. Without requesting permission, Cube walked to the microphone, placed the relic folder on the witness lectern, and inhaled so slowly the gallery could measure the distance between each rib. No rap bravado escaped with that breath, no Hollywood polish, only the muted gravity of a man who had spent years filing internal affidavits and had finally decided to read them aloud. "Some of y'all never noticed I refused the membership card," he began, voice low yet resonant enough to coax the ceiling tiles into sympathetic vibration. That's what angered them the most. The pronoun them hung in the air like an unopened subpoena. Cube continued, cadence surgical. He named the Invisible Club, an inner sanctum that curates rebellion the way fashion houses curate fall colors, sells authenticity like perfume, and trades ownership for access. "They don't invite you because they love you," he explained, locking eyes with Diddy. "They invite you because owning talent is more profitable than supporting it." He detailed the club in sentences that felt simultaneously like brushstrokes and bruises. A champagne-colored veneer poured over concrete control, velvet rope hiding steel chains. "The entry pattern," he explained, "never deviates. Flattery first, favor second, leash third. Decline one thread, and 10 others tighten. A single refusal rearranges press calendars, scrambles brand deals, and seeds gossip that germinates faster than fiber optics." Cube's diction was neither bitter nor theatrical. It was that rare register, calm indictment. The gallery leaned forward as he pivoted to Jamie Foxx, calling him talent incarnate, a man whose laughter could electrify entire city blocks, until that charisma threatened its handlers. Late-night phone calls arrived disguised as basketball invitations. No phones allowed, black SUVs idling, star-studded rosters that changed at the last minute. "Those weren't pickup games," Cube clarified. "They were obedience drills. Cameras hid behind houseplants, recording angles chosen to maximize humiliation if rebellion sprouted later. Sly headlines soon labeled Jamie difficult. Casting calls evaporated like puddles on summer asphalt. Then 2023 delivered what tabloids touted as a freak medical emergency. Hospitals, prayers, rumors. Coincidence, Cube said, was a fairy tale. That collapse was a love letter written in thread ink, he declared, the phrase cracking across the courtroom like a judge's gavel. A reminder that contracts in this town are stapled to your heartbeat. Next came Oprah, mid-Oscar buzz. She phoned Jamie, not to applaud but to redirect. She offered guidance, then escorted him to Quincy Jones's Bel Air mansion under the banner of mentorship. Cube's timeline suggested choreography, not generosity. Quincy floated through that enclave as amiable genius in public, undisputed godfather in private. Jamie left whispering, "I was molded, not mentored," eyes glassy from glimpsing machinery that grinds souls into product. Quincy, Cube insisted, was middle management. Above him are executives we haven't learned to name. Control functions through archives, digital vaults of compromat chilled to sub-zero. Parties double as film sets. Laughter becomes B-roll. Obey, and you get airplay, he warned. Resist, and a flash drive find your mailbox. He cataloged incidents, block number calls looping incriminating audio, envelopes of photos shot from impossible angles, actors waking in hotel suites beside contracts mysteriously pre-signed. One young thespian phoned Cube at dawn, convinced memories past midnight had been chemically erased. By sunset, he'd landed a global endorsement deal, gold-plated handcuffs and gift wrap. Then Cube unveiled his own scar. Early 2000s, an unmarked limo delivered him to a Beverly Hills mansion billed as networking. Phones confiscated, hallways dimmed amber, security at every corner. Behind a half-shut door, he glimpsed a superstar he'd idolized, slumped on a velvet sofa, eyes vacant, a camera lens fixed 3 feet away. Cube turned, walked out, and never looked back. The next morning, a block caller whispered, "We saw you leave." That wasn't celebration, he told the jury. It was a trapdoor disguised as a gala. He stared at Diddy until the mogul's posture shrank. "You didn't just wreck careers, you filmed the wreckage first, archived the footage, and leased it whenever leverage ran low." Cube moved from horror stories to tactical blueprints. Unclipping the folder, he produced a color-coded calendar of Jamie's projects. 2019 to 2021. Green for greenlit, red for killed. The red squares formed a constellation orbiting executives tethered to Bad Boy, Revolt TV, Diddy satellites. Netflix deals postponed, biopics shelved, collaborations ghosted. Then came the hospital headlines and NDAs thick as Bibles. "A man in that shape doesn't just collapse," Cube said. That was a statement drafted in stitches and 4 drips. Social media became the next battlefield. Clone theories sprouted like invasive vines, their absurdity camouflaging legitimate questions. "They dismantle you atom by atom," Cube warned, "until even your reflection argues with itself." Jurors glanced at Diddy's whitening knuckles. Cube zoomed out. "Hollywood," he contended, "is less dream factory than behavior lab, selling struggle back as streaming content. The same financiers bankrolling songs that glorify prison-owned stock in the prisons themselves," he said. "The soundtrack to your downfall doubles as their ringtone for profit." He rattled off ticker symbols, linking radio charts to private prison occupancy rates. The gallery exhaled as if hearing math for the first time. Artists preaching healing or autonomy found hard drives accidentally wiped, visas delayed, royalties frozen. One singer declined a Bad Boy contract and was soon labeled unstable, erased from every award ballot. Erratic. Cube scoffed. "No, punished." Then came the question prosecutors tiptoed around. "You're listing what Diddy did, but who handed him the matches?" In that moment, the trial transformed into an MRI of an industry's conscience. Invited for closing words, Cube stepped to the room center, folder tucked like an heirloom. "You forged a kingdom from hush money and edited memories," he told Diddy. "You baptized its success, but those were shackles dressed as trophies." He faced aspiring artists in the gallery. "Before you chase the mic, ask who guards the door and what toll he'll charge for your spotlight." Producing a glossy photo, himself in 1991, eyes bright, he tore it in half. That kid believed silence was survival. Silence is collaboration. Returning the torn pieces to the folder, he met the jurors' eyes. "You now own the truth. Decide whether this trial is a footnote or a foundation." To Diddy, "You gambled on nobody speaking, but echoes don't need permission." He pushed through the doors as flashbulbs erupted like distant thunder. Cube paused just long enough to release one last line, inaudible to the stenographer yet unforgettable. "You can close every curtain, but dawn still arrives." Some spectators straightened, others shifted uneasily. At least one blogger backspaced half a draft, realizing the headline had already changed. Beyond the walls, cameras popped like electric hail. Yet Cube's sedan slid past the barricade without a window lowering. Inside, conversations splintered. Publicists dialing crisis teams, label chiefs scanning investor emails, streaming service analysts recalibrating algorithms, less subscribers revolt. One juror whispered whether witness protection covered Hollywood whistleblowers. The only reply was a tremulous shrug. The courthouse exhaled, as though its ventilation system had held its breath. Yet the drama refused to die at the steps. Across Los Angeles, studios convened unofficial midnight summits. Conference rooms that usually hosted budget meetings morphed into triage centers for narrative control. Scripts greenlit for feel-good summer comedies were suddenly flagged for sensitivity reads, lest any line echo Cube's allegations. Streaming platforms fast-track documentaries on artistic freedom, a transparent bid to inoculate themselves against blame. Social feeds became battlegrounds. Hashtags bloomed. Hashtag silence is collaboration. Hashtag who owns the mic, collecting millions of impressions before the sun set over Santa Monica Bay. Former child actors joined live streams to recount recruitment dinners that sounded too familiar. Sound engineers uploaded grainy backstage footage, clips they'd archived just in case. Algorithms, ravenous but impartial, amplified every fragment. In New York, a late-night host swapped punch lines for pointed questions. What does the industry do with its misfits? How many broken bodies line the foundation of our favorite albums? The audience, primed for laughter, sat in unease, while the camera lens felt more confession booth than stage light. Investors behind conglomerates owning both record labels and private prisons woke to pre-market jitters. Analysts warned of sentiment tailspins, of content portfolios turning radioactive. Insurance firms that underwrote tour guarantees held emergency calls to reassess risk models involving outspoken performers. Jamie Foxx, still recovering, posted a single-sentence Instagram story. Some debts are paid in stories, not dollars. Within minutes he deleted it, but screenshots ricocheted through WhatsApp groups. Fans dissected pixels for hidden meaning. The next morning, Judge Hernandez instructed jurors to avoid social media. Phones were sealed in envelopes, prison style. But ideas don't quarantine, they mutate. Cube declined interviews, ignoring podcast invitations, dangling six-figure fees. Friends said he spent the evening grilling on a modest patio, kids laughing at jokes devoid of depositions. The folder sat on his mantle, part relic, part reminder. Inside Courtroom 12B, Diddy's defense arrived rattled, their opening objection tangled like shoelaces. Prosecutors alluded to Cube's testimony in tones just shy of contempt. The judge struck references from the record, but resonance never obeys gavels. Legal scholars revised syllabi overnight. A guest lecture on contract law became power dynamics and performative consent. Cube's name appeared in footnotes before the lecture was delivered. For all the ripples, the storms, I remained Cube's final promise. Dawn still arrives. It was less prophecy than physics. Artists in studio apartments dusted off truth-heavy singles they'd shelved for fear of blacklist. Screenwriters reopened drafts portraying moguls as predators. A saxophonist tweeted, "I'd rather be broke than branded," and booked 3 sold-out shows. Somewhere in the desert, a music video director burned a stack of NDAs. Ash spiraled into stars. On the Pacific Coast Highway, a drone filmed the horizon where darkness surrendered to pale gold. Capturing for a car, add what Cube had guaranteed. Curtains may block the view, but they cannot halt rotation. Back in the city, the courthouse resumed its grind, but something fundamental had shifted. Linoleum squeaks no longer sounded like maintenance oversight. They echoed like a wheel refusing to be oiled. Reporters who once hunted sensational pull quotes began asking systemic questions. Legal interns lingered at the lectern, imagining what courage tastes like when spoken aloud. As the trial lumbered toward closing arguments, Los Angeles sensed this was no longer about one man's crimes. It measured how much collective amnesia society was willing to purchase. Cube had offered narrative recall secured against intimidation's inflation. Whether the jury could translate that gift into justice remained uncertain. But outside the courthouse, dawn kept arriving, punctual as hope.